I think that we can all agree that the legal ramifications of COVID-19 on your wedding business is more fluid than the jello shots that you used to try to make when you were in college. And so for that reason, we have this video, that being things to keep in mind that are on the horizon with regard to COVID-19. We're talking about contracts and business operations. So looking ahead into 2021 and potentially 2022 for COVID-19 and the law in your business. All those things in this video. Stick around. Hello out there, folks. My name is Rob. I am a wedding industry lawyer, and in this video, we're talking about looking ahead to 2021 and 2022 with regard to COVID-19 and your business. The first thing that I want to talk about is your client contract, the document that you're signing and that your client is signing, and some things to think about with regard to COVID-19 that maybe you have not thought about as of today. The first thing that I want to address is that, yes, we have all updated our contracts at this point. We all have, updated the force majeure, COVID cancellation clauses, things like that. So the first thing that I want to stress to you, and that I would recommend that you take your contract and walk over to an attorney and ask them this, is, am I covered for any mutations or variants of COVID? In other words, if your contract only addresses COVID-19 and then has the litany of things that will happen, then it's possible that a judge strictly reading your contract might not agree that it deals with variants of COVID-19 or any other infectious disease. So it's important, if you've already done the wording of your contract, to go back and look and make sure that you might be covered for any future infectious diseases, not just COVID-19. But and I know that's super silly, but you never know with judges. Now, judges are required to look to the four corners of the contract and understand what the intent of the parties are by the actual wording of the contract. So sometimes you get a judge that strictly reads the contract, and if they only see COVID-19, then there is a possibility that they are only going to apply whatever the problem is to COVID-19. So in other words, make sure that whatever you're intending to have happen, if the contract can't move forward because of COVID-19, that it is reflective of any potential infectious disease, any potential communicable disease, any potential, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but some kind of pathogen, Outbreak, that movie with Dustin Hoffman. You should make sure that you're covered and all of the paradigm of your contract is covered for all that stuff. And the second thing to consider in your contract looking forward in the world of COVID is to understand what it means to not be able to have a wedding because of insert pathogen, COVID, coronavirus, infectious disease. Okay. So in March of 2020, having to wear a mask probably was not anticipated by anyone, right? And as we got further along in the lifespan of the coronavirus of COVID-19, yeah, maybe some people were comfortable with masks and some people were not. So you're in a land of, okay, well, it's nothing's stopping us. The law isn't stopping us from having this event with this many people. But if we have to wear masks, if we have to be 6 feet apart, is that really what we intended? So in other words, make sure in your contract and in your discussions with the client that you have an understanding of what it means for the event not to be able to go forward truly. Not just it's illegal for us to convene more than 50 people in a space. I'm talking about you can have 50 people in a space, but everybody's got to be 6 feet apart or wear a mask or have their temperature checked, that kind of thing. If that kind of action has to be taken at the event, is it still worth having the event? So defining what it means to actually, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like that's really weird as I'm looking at myself doing it. Anyway, hopefully you're listening to this and not watching it. Anyway, so what it means to actually have an event, make sure that you are specifying that in wherever in your contract you're doing that, the force majeure clause, the COVID clause, whatever the case is, make sure that it's explicit how we're defining the concept of that event. Now, number three thing on the horizon, be thinking about it, is the idea of indemnification. Now, I have talked about indemnification in another video, and I'll actually point and I'll see if we can edit that to make it look like it's over my shoulder, the other indemnity video. But it'll probably still be me in a plaid shirt, probably talking, so it will make no difference. But anyway, that's a little treat for the people watching. Anyway, so I've talked about indemnity before, but it would be important to discuss with your attorney in your local area, because every jurisdiction is different, particularly with indemnity. But you will want to consider adding some type of indemnity or hold harmless clause as it relates to infectious diseases, as it relates to COVID-19 or its variants. In other words, attempting to shift the liability of any harms or losses as a result of COVID-19 away from you and onto the client or into the ether. So that's a discussion that you're going to want to have, is to have the client indemnify you or hold you harmless if someone gets COVID-19 or falls ill as a result of infectious disease at that event. Now remember, again, and I want to really stress this, jurisdictions are different when it comes to indemnification. So don't just steal something from the internet, because it either might not be effective or it might get you into trouble. So that's the number three thing. Now we're going to talk about number four. Number four thing, again, kind of piggybacks off of previous videos that I've made about COVID-19, but I want to kind of bring it again to the forefront. And that is, you might consider either in your contract or alongside your contract or in some manner communicate to the client what your infectious disease policies and procedures are. What I mean with that is having either a document or a portion of your contract dedicated to a bullet point list of, these are the things that me and my staff are going to do. This is how we hold ourselves accountable. So I send staff home if they have a temperature. I send staff home and they don't work if they haven't tasted anything in a few days. And that's not just because they had, 10 bags of Cool Ranch Doritos and they can't taste anything. I'm talking about symptoms being symptomatic for COVID. So, or we still temperature check, or nobody can work for me unless they can show their vaccine card. These are the type of things. These are the policies and procedures that your company has and actually does that would make the event safer from the spread of infection. Now, what that does is it's going to put the client on notice about what you're going to be doing. So if someone does get COVID-19 or the client gets COVID-19, then you have a strong argument, although nothing is foolproof. You have a strong argument that the client assumed the risk because they knew that these were the things that you're going to be doing. The other component of this is of having the policies and procedures in writing and actually doing them is that injuries don't mean that someone is liable. In other words, if somebody gets COVID at the event, it does not necessarily mean that somebody is going to be liable. Typically, and it depends on what jurisdiction you're in, typically someone has to, the injured person has to show that someone else was at least negligent. And when you can say, Judge, here's my policies and procedures, here's all the things that we did, I've got evidence showing that we did all these things, we always do them, that can be indicative of the standard of care, meaning that you were not negligent. So having a policies and procedures in place can help reduce the likelihood that you will be a defendant. And even if you are a defendant in a case in which someone gets sick from COVID or an infectious disease, it will reduce the likelihood that that person will be successful in suing you. So again, making sure that the vocabulary in your contract is up to snuff, making sure that we are understanding what it means to not have a wedding or that the wedding has to be rescheduled, and then making sure that you, if possible, are including COVID as an injury that you would be indemnified against or held harmless for. And then finally, creating and implementing some type of policy and procedure for the purposes of reducing the spread of an infectious disease amongst your staff and at the event, and making sure that is communicated in some way to the client, either through your client contract, with your client contract, or in some other manner, either through email or smoke signal, or maybe smoke screen. I don't know. Didn't Picasso used to do that kind of stuff? That was like with lights. Like he would, and I don't even know if it was Picasso. Some artist. I'm not a very worldly person, as you can tell by my shirt. But I was going to say, I think some artist worked in smoke and then he would photograph it. I don't know. I digress. Those are some of the 4 things that might not have been apparent to us a few months ago or even a few weeks ago, but I think that we should be looking out for on the horizon with regard to COVID-19. If you found this video helpful, informative, please be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from, because this is also a podcast. But if you're watching this, you got to hit that notification bell. You got to subscribe there. If you have any suggestions for content, as always, leave them in the comment section below. Do you want to hear more stuff about COVID-19? Let me know. Do you want me to never wear this blue plaid shirt again? Let me know. I'll probably will wear it again. It's my favorite shirt. Who are we kidding? I've been wearing this probably for 15 years. It's an old man shirt. It's a dad shirt. So I think I've said everything I can say about that. At any rate, folks, new videos every week. And with that, we'll see you next time.